Hey everyone, how's it going? It's Russell here, and eligibility for the EI program or employment insurance has ended or is about to end for many Canadians, and it has many people who were either previously on employment insurance or were considering applying for it a little bit confused about what exactly is changing here and how it affects them. So in today's video, we're going to answer some of these questions, such as what's happening with the program moving forward. Can people who are no longer eligible for EI switch over to CRB potentially? And if they can, how many weeks could they possibly be eligible for? So we're going to cover all of that in today's video, but before we do, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so to keep on supporting Canadian content just like this on YouTube. Now, you might remember that at the beginning of the pandemic, the CRB, or the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, was the main program that people who had their work affected by the pandemic applied to in order to get some support. Now, as of September of last year, late September, early October, the CERB program actually ended and split off into two paths that people could take based on their individual circumstances. One path was the CRB, and the other path was the EI, and based on a number of things, you'd either qualify for EI or the CRB. We covered it right here on the channel, but about 6 months ago, for those who had to go down the employment insurance route, the ones who were eligible for employment insurance, well, their EI was set to end, again, roughly 6 months ago, but just in the nick of time, the House of Commons and the Senate were able to pass through new legislation that extended the EI program up to a maximum of 50 weeks. For many, that 50 weeks of EI eligibility or EI entitlement has come to an end or is about to come to an end. And along with the eligibility coming to an end, some of the aspects that have been changed about the EI program for the short term to help people qualify for the EI program during COVID, make it a little bit easier to qualify for the program, well, those temporary measures are also ending right around now. We're going to start with how this changes things for people who are about to apply for EI, but we're also going to cover what people who are finishing up their EI can do now. Now, in September of last year, the EI program was expanded to allow for way more people to be able to be eligible for it, and now those guidelines that have made it easier to apply for EI are changing because now it is September 2021, and this is a list of the things that were changed. And some of the highlights here is that you only need 120 insured hours to qualify. Now, to qualify for the EI program, you need to have 420 insurable hours worked at your previous job before leaving that job in order to be eligible. Now, during COVID, they sort of lowered this by allowing for you to get a top up to your hours. If you were applying for regular benefits, you would get 300 extra hours to add on. If you were applying for sickness, you got 480 insured hours to add on top. Now, that minimum of 420 hours is a lot easier to reach when you just get a bonus 300 hours to add on to the amount you actually worked. So people who had worked up to 120 insured hours, add on the 300, they were able to be eligible for the 420 you needed in order to be eligible for EI. Now, this also allowed for certain weekly minimums in terms of how much EI applicants would receive, right around $500 per week, putting this right in line with the CRB program. It was able to extend the program out to 50 weeks. Now, these are all things that were put in place specifically for the pandemic, but now, like I said, as we've reached September 2021, things are about to change. Now, the two most significant things that are changing here is the fact that you're no longer going to be able to get this boost. You're going to actually have to have worked the 420 insurable hours to be eligible for the EI program. And also, there's no longer this $500 minimum. This $500 minimum has actually been reduced. Let me show you what I'm talking about. This was announced at the same time that the CRB was extended an extra month, taking it until the end of October, but they also announced something here about new EI applicants during this sort of month-long period, or rather 2-month-long period. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit so that perhaps you can read it a little bit more clearly, but here it is. The minimum weekly benefit rate payable to employment insurance claimants will be set at $300 per week, down from $500 per week, matching the current rate paid under the CRB for new claimants. The EI minimum $300 benefit rate will apply to EI claims established specifically between September 26, 2021 and November 20th, 2021. So if you're someone who's newly applying for EI between these two dates, this applies to you, that $300 per week minimum, because they thought, hey, it's not really fair if people on EI are receiving below $300 per week when that is what people who are on the CRB are receiving if they're freshly applying for the CRB program as of now. Also, new applicants to the program won't automatically qualify for the 50 weeks of employment insurance. It's going to go back to qualifying you and the amount of weeks you can have EI based on the amount of insurable hours you have. And it sort of is going by this chart that was inside Bill C30, which is again something we covered on the channel. If you want to stay up to date with all of the things that are happening for these programs, make sure to subscribe to the channel. But this is the way that they're going to calculate it now. The number of weeks you get is determined by, again, the amount of employable hours or insurable employment hours that you have at your previous job before you needed to qualify for EI. And then it's also determined by your regional rate of unemployment. This is essentially means that if there's a region that has high unemployment numbers, you're actually going to be able to qualify for more weeks because there's more people who are needing to qualify for the program. Maybe there's certain economic trouble in your specific region. So that's the way that it works under this new program. So if, for example, I had 810 insurable hours at my previous employer and my regional rate of employment based on where I lived was 7.5%, okay, then between 7% and 8%, 7.5% regional rate of unemployment. And then we have to find that 810 hours, which would be right around here, right? And that would mean that we would qualify for 19 weeks of employment insurance. Now, if you want to take a closer look at this table for yourself, I've provided a link down there in the description. It'll say Bill C30 : and then have a link. It'll be to this big document. But again, it is a very large document. So I recommend you go to your computer and you click Control F so you can bring up the search bar and you type table of weeks of benefits so that you can actually sort through the document to find the table that you're actually looking for. Now, for people who have been on EI for the past year and are potentially transitioning off of this program since it's ending, there is a possibility that you could be eligible for a certain number of periods of the Canada Recovery Benefit if you're still in a position where you're unable to find work in your field. In order to be eligible for the CRB, there are a whole bunch of eligibility requirements that you have to meet, and you have to meet all of them in order to be eligible for the CRB. So I'm going to leave a link in the description where you can take a look and read this actual webpage that tells you whether or not you're eligible for the CRB. But I will point out some key ones for people who are specifically coming from the EI program and wanting to find out if they're eligible for the CRB. And we're going to start right here because one of these eligibility requirements is that you did not apply for or receive any of the following, and one of these is employment insurance benefits. Now, the way the CRB works is that it's actually given out in 2-week increments for which you apply for the 2-week period after the 2-week period is over. Now, this is going to have a specific impact on people who are applying for the CRB based on EI. So let me explain some key points for how the CRB program works. When you apply for the benefit, you're not actually applying for the next 2 weeks, you're applying for the previous 2 weeks, the period that has just finished. So for example, the upcoming period here for the CRB, you would apply for it on Monday, September 27th, but the period that you're actually applying for, the days that this money is going to count towards, is from the 12th of September to the 25th of September. This means that if you received EI on any of these days, you would not be eligible for this period of the CRB, period number 26, but you may be eligible for the next period. Let's say, for example, your last EI payment was on Wednesday, September 22nd, and you're eligible for the CRB for all of the other reasons, all of the other eligibility requirements, you 100% meet them, but you just received your EI on the 22nd. You can't apply for this period, but you might be able to apply for period number 27. Let me show you all of these periods. We have period number 27 and 28 coming up, and those are the confirmed last 2 periods of the CRB unless they're extended further. Again, I'm going to keep you posted on the channel, but if you were someone who received it on the 22nd, well then for period number 27, since period number 27 goes over the time of the 26th to the 9th of October, well, receiving your last EI payment on the 22nd wouldn't make you ineligible for this period because you didn't receive it on any of these CRB days. So at that point, you would be able to apply on October 11th. I hope this is helping to make sense of when you can apply for the CRB if you're transitioning from the EI and you're still out of work. There are a couple of things I want to emphasize if you are making this transition. First, you will not receive the original CRB amount of that $2,000 per month or $1,000 per 2-week period, $900 after tax. That's actually recently been lowered, and if you're applying to the CRB for the first time, you're going to get the lowered amount, which is $600 or $540 after tax per 2-week period. So if you're eligible for these final 2 periods until the end of October, that would be $1,080. Again, if you're meeting all these eligibility requirements. And another reminder, if you have haven't been on the CRB, you probably haven't been watching my CRB update videos, but right now, like I said, the last CRB period will end on October 23rd, but there is the potential that this could be extended until the end of November, because inside of the legislation or the bill or the law that was passed through the House of Commons, it actually allows for the current government, this would be the Liberal government, to be able to make the decision to extend this program until November 23rd without actually having to write any new legislation or take it through the House of Commons. They can just essentially say, hey, based on the employment data that we're seeing, we can see Canadians still need the support, and they would be very easily able to extend this out to November, but we haven't yet heard whether or not they're going to do that. But don't worry, again, I'm going to keep you posted right here on the channel if we do hear anything. Now, I know that was a lot, but I hope you found it at least a little bit helpful, because I know these programs can be quite confusing. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. And again, of course, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and check out the Canada Money Mastery program, 40% off with coupon code GROW. Inside of that program, we talk all about setting up your finances so you're spending less, and so that you can give yourself the opportunity to earn more, and then take that savings and put it into investments that can help you build a wealthier future for yourself and for your future family. Check it out, see if it's a good fit. I'd love to see you in there. But with all of that said, thanks so much for watching, everybody. I really hope this video helped you out at least a little bit, and I'll see you next time.